Hey everybody, I have a video here for you today, and those new to my channel, I'm trying to cover all the structures in Egypt they call pyramids or unfinished pyramids, and there's over 100 of them, so I need to keep on going with this, and some days I need to cover more than one structure. We're going to be doing that today, and I think there's a big mystery down here. But we are flying into what is called Pepi II's pyramid, and this is where it is located in very southern Saqqara. And there are 1, 2, I believe 3 satellite pyramids of queens, and this attribution seems fine with me. There is a tomb in here with stars on the walls, very Egyptian. And I'll just show you a couple pics here. It seems like we have a couple different construction eras just by the looks of the rocks here. And if you don't think archaeoastronomy was used by the ancient Egyptians, well, that's a pretty cool pic right there, I think. I think that comes from one of these satellite pyramids. And from overhead here, you can obviously see the causeway coming off. And in front here, when you look at construction methods in ancient Egypt, this is fairly modern if you look at the whole picture, obviously. And here you can see the causeway comes down to this area. And the remains of the end of the causeway there, that looks pretty interesting. And down along the causeway, you have this structure right here, and that looks a little unique to me. Not sure exactly what that is, but obviously an entrance underground. But I think the big mystery is this place down here, and this looks like pictures, early diagrams of the unfinished pyramids. And this is a very large structure. This is between 85 and 90 meters long. And obviously it is built in a rectangular form. And it does seem to have an ancient causeway coming off of it. And this was explored in the 1800s, and a little bit was written about this, but it says this place is built on a limestone platform, similar to Giza and other very old places. And here is what the place looks like today, and this looks exactly like the unfinished pyramids. It's actually described as a parallelogram, exactly like the unfinished pyramid Hazayat El Aryan, that is covered in trash. But they say this is just an ancient mastaba. They don't say this is an unfinished pyramid, though it looks just like them. And I think this is what the pyramid of Djedefre looked like a long time ago, before the village people nearby, and I'm not talking about the rock roof from the 70s, but the people from the village took the stones away from the pyramid of Djedefre. I think this is what it looked like. Massive long descending shaft in the middle. And those unfinished pyramids, they say they are about 12, 13 courses high, and that's exactly what this one is. So I think these are very ancient. Now let's just read about the attribution, and they say this is from the 4th dynasty, Pharaoh Shepseskaf. So let's read how that attribution was given. And people came along in the 1800s, put out their best guess, and those theories have stuck ever since. That's how we are left with these attributions. Now obviously I wanted to read about Shepseskaf's Mastaba, and here is the ancient name for it, Mastabat Fara'un. And this comes from a book called The Pyramids, The Mystery, Culture, and Science of Egypt's Great Monuments. It says, a large tomb in South Saqqara, which the local people call the Mastabat Fara'un, or the Pharaoh's Bench, has certainly not been ignored by archaeologists in recent years, yet it remains today one of the most enigmatic tombs of the Old Kingdom. It was first described by Perrin. It says Lepsius devoted little time to it, but he did note the tomb's shape reminded him of a large sarcophagus. In 1858, Mariette began to investigate its underground construction, but his notes were not preserved, except for a few sketches that Maspero later published. This tomb was erroneously ascribed to the last ruler of the 5th dynasty. In 1924-25, Gustave Jacquier carried out a systematic investigation in the framework of the wide-ranging excavations in South Saqqara. He was the first to determine, if only on indirect evidence, that this tomb belonged to Shepseskaf. In doing that, he was aided by a fragment of a stela bearing a cartouche that contained part of the sign F as the last letter of the king's name, by the fact that the name of the tomb, Shepseskaf, is purified, concludes with a determinative. Now, so, the attribution of this place to Shepseskaf is based on a fragment of a stela bearing a cartouche that contains the very last letter just of the king's name. That's how the attribution is made to this place. It says, the tomb does not stand on bedrock, but rather a foundation, and like most mastabas, it has a rectangular north-south orientated ground plan. The core is composed of 2 levels with large grayish-yellow limestone blocks that came from stone quarries west of the pyramids in Dashur. Perrin, Lepsius, and Jacques de Morgan all found remnants of pathways over which the stone was transported to the construction site. The casing consisted primarily of soft white limestone. Only its lowest level was made of pink granite. On some of the casing blocks, the remains of Prince Kamenose, so-called restoration inscription, have been found. So a prince did restoration on a thing that wasn't even that old? That's strange. The entrance to the substructure resembles that of a pyramid more than that of a mastaba. It lies on an axis of the north wall about 2.5 meters above ground level. Beyond a small vestibule, or perhaps simply a niche, the pink granite descending corridor becomes horizontal. Massive shaft leading downwards, pink granite. This is exactly like the pyramid at Zayat El Aryan, I believe. And the picture of it I showed you before, I believe that is exactly what the pyramid of Zayat El Aryan looked like before it was demolished and hauled away by the villagers. It says, right at the beginning of this part of the corridor, there is a granite barrier consisting of 3 plugging blocks that were lowered afterward. And this is becoming a constant theme. These very ancient structures were plugged up, blocked, and like they were almost buried in a way. It says the substructure into which the corridor leads contains an antechamber, a burial chamber, and storerooms. Both chambers, including their ceilings, were built of pink granite. As in Menkare's pyramid, and I believe Shepseskaf is a direct descendant of Menkare, the 3rd pyramid at Giza's builder, so they say. So the chronological order of the buildings is the 3rd pyramid, small one at Giza, and then this large mastaba down in southern Saqqara. That's the order that the Egyptologists give us for the building of these monuments by the pharaohs. As in Menkare's pyramid, the slightly vaulted underside of the ceiling was supposed to imitate a barrel vault. Further common points are the basalt sarcophagus, of which only fragments have been preserved, and the arrangements of 5 small storerooms. And it says there was a basalt sarcophagus. Well, you remember that other structure down in southern Saqqara, there was a 150-ton basalt sarcophagus, so that leads me to wonder if this was another large 150-ton basalt sarcophagus that only fragments have been found, because these were demolished, carted away. It says the mortuary temple differs significantly from previous royal structures of this type. It would be difficult to find a parallel, because Shepseskaf's mortuary temple was not connected with any pyramid. Since the conditions for the worship of the ruler had nonetheless to be provided, they must have been improvised. The temple stood in front of the east wall of the Mastaba and was oriented north-south. Although it was relatively small, at least 2 phases in its construction can be distinguished on the basis of the material used. Limestone, and then on top of that, mud bricks. And here is a diagram of what it looks like inside of this large mastaba that I think is exactly like the unfinished pyramids. And you see here the north going this way, and the sarcophagus, the remnants were found down here. That makes perfect sense. The very western end of the burial chamber, west being significant for the land of the dead, because that's where the sun sets. The whole religion was wrapped around the movement of the sun. So that makes perfect sense, and that's common in every burial chamber, including the Great Pyramid. It says, in the area around the Mastaba Fara'un, no tombs of Shepseskaf's family members or officials have been found. Well, that's strange. And remember, the nearby pyramid was associated to Pepi II of the 6th dynasty, a totally different dynasty. The attribution to Shepseskaf of this large mastaba is baseless and flimsy and basically ridiculous, if you ask me. It says, Shepseskaf had intentionally chosen the unusual form of his royal tomb as a protest against the increasing influence of the priesthood of the sun god Ra. He rejected a tomb in the form of a pyramid, considered a symbol of the sun, and decided to build a mastaba-like structure for himself. And this is a reconstruction, one of a few different ones, that what they thought this looked like, and they think it's in the form of a sarcophagus, which makes sense to me. Here is another diagram of what this place looked like in antiquity. And you notice the wall built around this place? Well, this is identical to the wall built around the so-called unfinished pyramids that all these pharaohs amazingly stopped building at the exact same time, centuries apart. But this is a good look at a theory of what this place looked like originally. And I will leave this link below in case anybody wants to read this, but it gives a whole bunch of theories on why this guy might have built a totally different looking tomb as his predecessors did up at Giza. It just gives a whole bunch of theories leading me to believe that they have no freaking clue. And this is just lame. And it says here, and they're looking for an analogy of this place, and he mentions the place up at Abu Sir. Neferefre's tomb was originally planned as a pyramid, but was transformed into a square mastaba after his premature death. And this is one of those unfinished pyramids that this place really resembles, and this author even says that. This also entailed the modification of the construction plan for the mortuary temple, which had not yet been begun when the king died. And it's amazing, all these kings died at the same time, and their pyramids were left in this unfinished state. But then others are left fully intact, and they are called mastabas. This is all very confusing. But that is the pyramid of Pepi from the 6th dynasty, the attribution is. And this has indications that a pharaoh did work here on this pyramid. Relatives were buried in 4 nearby places. There's an ancient necropolis down here. Because why? There is a very, very ancient structure here that the dynastic Egyptians considered sacred. Obviously, to me, it is this. The attribution is to Shepseskaf of the 4th dynasty, based on just a fragment of a stela that contained the letter, supposedly, of his last name. That attribution is ridiculous. But that's all the time I have. I'll leave links below. Dad, I'm thinking of you over there in Florida. If you haven't left your island home, for God's sake, get the hell out of there right now. Thinking of you. Hope you all thought that was interesting, and you all have a very nice day.